dear audience. Thanks for being present with such a big crowd. My name is Mika Torhola. I'm the managing director of Atostek Oy. We're a software development company in Finland. We're present in Tampere and in Espoo, and we have about 100 people working for us. Pretty much about 1/3 of our operations involves healthcare sector, and I've been asked a lot to give a nerd's opinion about programming and software development, especially in healthcare. And today I'm going to do that. So I'm talking about PX, programmer experience, as opposed to UX, which is known as user experience. A lot of emphasis has been put on the user experience lately. But programmers and software developers are users too. They're just different users. They use their programming tools, software development tools, and they make pretty important stuff. And due to the digitalization, programmers are becoming increasingly important for healthcare industry today. Majority, or pretty much any of the process improvements in healthcare, they do require some sort of change in software. So also the complexity of the digital environments in healthcare organizations is exploding. We are having IoT devices, we're having more and more complex networks, we have all the cloud environments, we have so much stuff that we didn't have even 10 years ago, let alone 20 years ago. And additionally, we have an industry in healthcare which is really heavily regulated. So have all that, and then consider the fact that programmers, they like to develop software. And if they cannot do that, the PX, which is the programmer experience, it sinks. And the programmers change industry. They don't want to work in a place or in an industry where they can't do what they love. So healthcare industry is sort of competing with the other industries. We're competing with mechanical industries, we're competing with device manufacturers, we're competing with sales and insurance industries, and all of those require programmers as well. So my talk today is about what can we do? What's the stuff that's making software developers and programmers unhappy? And what should we do to help them feel happy and stay in the industry? So, first of all, I'll present a couple of stereotypes of programmers. First one is the stereotype that a programmer wants to be significant. They live in a dual world. They either are in a flow state where they can program a lot of stuff, they can create stuff, and they feel like a god. And in another world, they have no idea what they're doing. I think this is true. Also, programmers, they like to make things with computers. That's the most important thing. Programmers really like to make their computers do weird stuff. Make beep boop or whatever. And another thing that programmers are, they can have weird liking to a weird piece of technology. Some people I've heard like programming languages like Ruby or Haskell, and some people like Apple machines. And then another stereotype is that programmers are like machines. They turn caffeine and pizza into software. And that's an identity that a lot of programmers have. They want to create stuff. And they want to see themselves like this. Not every day, not all of them, but these are the stereotypes. So this all has to do with the fact that they love to program, they love to create something. They love to dwell in a development environment which targets, for example, these four major target environments, and they like to use programming languages and IDEs the development environments to create software. They're really happy when they see screens like these on their computer screen. Well, maybe not assembler, I don't know. Is there anybody here who's written assembler? No, well, one. But did you know that even just the simple programming itself involves 694 different languages if we go and check from the Wikipedia page? So these are not including assembler, but C#, Java, Python, those are languages that are familiar for most of us, or at least most of you who have written software sometimes. And these are also just the tip of an iceberg, but there are actually almost 1,000 different programming languages in the world. So that alone is one really complicated area where software developers and programmers like to live. But the reality is that instead of being able to focus on developing the software today, programmers need to live in this they need to live in this whole set of tools and processes. And what they really love to do is this green development environment piece here. They need to understand the requirements for the software. They need to take good care of the version control. They need to take care of the continuous deployment, testing, and get all the stuff that they develop to work in production. And they need to understand and excel in all tools surrounding all this process. But this is just a small part of what software developers need to understand in addition to actually writing the software. They also need to understand the network environment. They need to understand the fact that healthcare organizations have their own networks. They have local data centers or vendors for that. But then we do have different cloud providers like Azure and Google Cloud and AWS. And then we need to set up weird VPN tunnels between all of these to get all the applications to work with each other. It's a mess. 10 years ago, it was a bit simpler, but it's just exploding. If you take a hospital district in Finland, it probably has this picture, and it even has probably more than one local data center. It probably has all these cloud providers here. And whenever you go and deploy a software in this environment, you're setting up, you need to like 5 days to set up the VPN tunnels and whatnot here. So is that time and money well spent? I don't know, but that's not something that programmers want to do. Again, there are surrounding systems. Whenever you develop software to an environment, there are surrounding systems, like existing electronic medical records. They have APIs that programmers need to connect to. Those APIs may or may have documentation. It's either not accessible at all by request, or it's completely open. Rarely it's open. Then the actual interfaces need to be connected. Usually it's also a tedious job to get connected into the actual interfaces. Then you'll need to be able to access the test systems if you deploy something into healthcare organization and integrate it. Again, this is something that rarely we have an open environment. Usually we have a lot of work needed to be able to use the test systems or environments available in a healthcare organization. And again, even if we are able to access the APIs, the test systems, and the data is not there, we need to punch in our own data. And we might be able to get some data from the healthcare organization, but it's not real data. It doesn't have usually actual characteristics of real patients. So again, we have a big swamp of stuff that's, again, making software development really difficult and expensive, because we need to take care of all of this instead of writing the software. Again, we have human environment. Usually we have some kind of management layer between the users and the developers. Obviously, we could set up things in a way that the developers and the the programmers, designers, architects also discuss directly with the users. But it's not always like this. Sometimes it might be like this, and it's again taking down our programmer experience. Well, I'm going on and on. I'm telling how wrong things are. We have cybersecurity considerations. We need to consider all of this stuff. We need to consider, for example, that the end users cannot take their passwords on a USB stick and expose them to everybody. We need to consider all the possible cybersecurity threats. We also need to consider regulations because we are in a highly regulated business, healthcare. If we plan to make a software or medical device into the US market, we really need to dig into the FDA requirements. Same thing in Europe. Of course, we need to understand the standards. And of course, we need to, in Finland, we have STM and THL. And obviously, the medical device regulation, that's pretty new stuff. So, we have all this, but we still don't have one line of code. So, I don't know if somebody's thinking that, okay, how can you manage this? If you don't manage, the bad management really breaks programmer experience. The result is that your programmers are going to fly. They're going to go to your competitor or to a different project or to another industry. One misconception that's been around is that agile frees up management workload. That's a bad misconception. Being agile doesn't mean that you could reduce your management. No, you still need to manage all the stuff that I mentioned. If you have a project, software project, if you are buying a software project, you still need to take care and manage all the stuff that I have mentioned. If you don't, your programmers are completely unproductive. So how well can you manage this complexity? If you don't manage, developers will take care of it if they are experienced, if they understand everything that I have talked about. But in that case, they don't have time to develop. Another alternative is that your developers don't take care of it. Then they develop stuff, and it's never going to run in production because you haven't managed all the necessary things for that. So how to manage stuff? Well, the Finnish style is make a checklist. That's what we do in our company. We have a software development project checklist. We go through with our internal project members, we go through with our customers, and whoever we work with, we go through the responsibilities. Whose responsibility is do what? And it starts with the business concepting and setting up the environment and requirement specifications, and then we have the actual software design, internationalization. I could go on and all the stuff. And then koodaus in Finnish, coding or programming. That's just one small part of the whole thing. So we need to manage all this in order to get good programming experience and get the software development job done. So all of that and no code yet. Oh my God. But is there something in healthcare that affects programming experience positively? And the good thing is that yes, there is. There are certain elements in healthcare and medical software that actually draws software developers and programmers into the industry. Some quite typical content that's present in healthcare and medical area are, for example, system integrations. That's a big business because we have a lot of obsolete systems. We have a lot of legacy. We have new systems coming right up that replace the old systems, and then we have new needs. We have new, completely new types of systems, and we need to get them all integrated because if we don't, the processes in the healthcare organizations don't really fly. Then obviously we have the classical clinical applications. And we have the medical devices and all the software that's related to those medical devices. Software developers who like system integrations are completely different animals to those who like creating clinical applications. It's wise to understand what you're dealing with and who if you're buying software from a company, from a vendor, a custom software, it's good to understand what type of software they're used to writing and what their developers like to program. And of course, I've added, there are more varieties of healthcare software, but I've added hospital management software as a third type. This is something that's very close to this almost like ERP software or CRM software that could similar to what's running in other industries. And these are typical softwares, but there's also some types of software that are really interesting to programmers today. And that's good news, especially interesting content for developers, at least to my perception, are artificial intelligence components. Healthcare industry is lucky in the sense that we are able to collect a lot of information. It's a bit difficult to get that information into use, but we have the information. And Finland also passed the law for the secondary use of healthcare information last spring, and that's really good stuff. We're able to get this stuff, the development of different artificial intelligence modules really running in Finland once the FinData government body starts operating in full scale. And these can draw new programmers and new talents into healthcare software development industry. And also, it's a bit different. The data mining and science is another part of the same coin. But I think that these two types of software are the ones that you and us together we can use as baits to get really good software programming talent to work in our projects. We should sort of, even if our project was about hospital information systems, we can always spice it up with a little bit of artificial intelligence and data mining. So, as a couple of take-home messages, the first thing is, whenever you have a project, or if you want to develop a software, or you're buying one, make sure that you have enough resources to not just write the code, but also to manage all the necessary other aspects in the healthcare or medical software development. It means that you need to have a large enough project size. You need to take the management part seriously. You cannot just buy an agile team and tell them to scrum away and be happy. They won't. It's going to be a mess. So you need somebody who is actually, who wants to work in that messy part, who wants to arrange things for the developers instead of being a programmer. You need that guy or a girl. And if your project size is small or the duration of your funding is short, you really need to consider actually favoring products. You don't need to buy a monolith. You can buy modules, products that are modules, and you can piece them together and create a puzzle and a whole product out of that. But consider favoring products if you don't have enough long-term funding. At least make a conscious decision whether you're using a product or brewing your own. And I mentioned this already, so utilize those hot technologies, artificial intelligence, data mining, whatever you think that is hot right now, that's something that draws the talent to your project. And let's keep our programmers happy. This is the way to, this is really important for getting our healthcare applications and software going forward instead of reducing our development speed in this industry to a halt. Thank you very much.